today we are here with Rene Besson, who is a Hollywood guy, is a movie producer in several capacities. And so you've done stuff with pretty big names, Robert De Niro, Ed Norton.
I've been involved in a kind of a breadth of different types of films. Primarily, I've worked a lot in the action genre because I had an affiliation with a company that made a lot of them. Notably, movies like The Expendables, The Mechanic, Drive Angry.
Hero?
I'm sorry?
Imaginary Heroes?
Imaginary Heroes was my first producing credit that I met Dylan Jovanet on.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. So Dylan told me about you. We wanted to film a technical analysis course, like an educational thing. And Dylan said I have a Hollywood movie producer who could do it. So I thought that would be great.
I love how it's always Hollywood. I got a Hollywood.
I don't know why I say
A-list Hollywood
I
producer.
say it because he says it. Yeah, because
No,
well, if I say I know a guy who's into movies and stuff, everyone's like, yeah, so does everybody. You know? But I mean, not at this level. But
Normally,
I remember that was your first producer credit. I remember you talking to somebody on the phone about getting it, and you hung up the phone and you were happy that you got it.
Well, you only get what you kind of ask for,
right?
You know, because if given their own devices, people won't give you anything. So I knew how to ask for what I deserved.
So, you know, the reason you're on this show and we're interviewing you, usually you're behind the camera, you're interviewing me or you're helping me along with whatever production we're doing. But, you know, you're somebody who did the kind of from the bottom up. So you slept in your car, right? You were doing anything you can to get into the movie business, and now you have a lot of productions under your belt. And I don't know, I like bragging about you. I say A-list movie, I don't know. A-list sounds good. I'm like a civilian.
Usually when I rock up and say, I produce, I also direct, I'm a photographer, there's a number of things that I do.
How do you let people know that you do these higher level things instead of, because people size you up and everybody says they're in the movie business.
Well, it's funny because when you say you're a producer, the very first thing that most people go to is not movies, they go to pornography. Like that's what every single time I say I produce, that's immediately where they go. And I have to,
I think that's just based on the way you look and dress.
I'm from Miami. That's the simplest answer.
You look like you're from Miami.
I look like I'm from Miami. I know. Yeah.
You have what's the dude from Desperado?
Oh, Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, you have like Antonio Banderas was like your eighth cousin, twice removed or something.
I did eventually make a movie with him in Chile a number of years ago. But the person who actually physically looked a lot like, that I didn't connect, that I looked a lot like him, was Sir Ben Kingsley. I did a movie and Sir Ben was like, in a movie you should play me.
Oh.
Yes.
You kind of also look like you should be in a painting on like Ghostbusters 2 or something.
Oh, it's not Vigo.
Yeah, it was
Vigo.
Yeah.
It was Vigo. I am Vigo.
And who's the guy from Blow?
Jordi Moya.
What's his name in Blow?
Oh, I don't remember his character's name, but he's Johnny Depp's partner in Blow.
No More Brothers.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Who I also worked with a number of years later in Puerto Rico on the film that you came to visit me on. Yeah.
And I missed him. He was like my favorite actor. And I was right there.
I made sure he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Just to be a dick.
So I wouldn't slobber all over.
Exactly. Just so you wouldn't embarrass me.
I was close. John Travolta walked by and he gave me a little nod, and I was just like, don't blink, don't do anything, don't fuck up anything that has to do with Rene's gig.
Stay in your box.
Can I have your autograph? No?
Hey, Spike. Hey, Spike. Hey, Spike.
Yeah.
If you could. Hey, Spike.
Yeah. No, that was a trip.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, though. Tell us about the beginning, the early days, because that's what this show is largely about, kind of the struggle and coming up, and then you made something of yourself. You have a long way to go, I think. So tell us about the early days.
The easiest kind of path is to say I grew up around fashion and photography and image, and because my mom was a hairdresser and makeup artist, so I was always kind of exposed to things of beauty, pop culture, all of that in the surroundings of Miami, Florida. And I was working in the hotel business where I learned a lot that ended up helping me later on in life, which was in the hotel business, you have to protect people's interests and serve their needs discreetly. Now, that was the key that I then used later on in the film business to understand.
What hotel were you working at where you had to be so discreet about people's needs?
Any hotel.
Okay, so
when you work for an office
TJ.
in any hotel, you have to know.
Oh.
I actually worked at the Biltmore in Coral Gables, and I worked at the Sofitel, and I worked at the Sheraton in.
What years? Because that means a lot. That makes a difference when we're talking about Miami hotels.
Yeah. That was about 1991, 2, and 3-ish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in 1992, I think it was, I was actually in the hotel when Hurricane Andrew hit, and I learned a lot about crisis management and dealing with a bunch of people and taking care of a bunch of people under those types of crisis conditions, which later on served me, because on almost every film that I've done in New Orleans or the Caribbean, we've either gotten hit by a massive storm or a big hurricane, which happened to be in Puerto Rico on a movie called Driven, which is the John DeLorean biopic. We actually got hit with with Hurricane Maria 4 days into principal photography on that film, and managed to somehow pull it all back together within 2 weeks and start shooting again. That was there's my life before that.
Tell us about the life before.
Well, let me tell you the life before that. Yeah. So I grew up in Miami, and I had a fascination with pop culture and with media and with, photography and beauty and, aspirational things in the kind of the ecosystem of South Florida in the early 90s was South Beach, models, photography, commercials. It's the hub of Latin America. So it was a lot of music and TV shows, and that's, and I always knew that I had a knack for popular culture, media, films, but I didn't have a real kind of focus on it. So I was partying on South Beach. I was doing different things, and I would go out on auditions, and I would book little commercials, and I would take jobs as an extra on different films that would come into town. So I was an extra in The Birdcage, Striptease, Blood and Wine, Up Close and Personal. Striptease I was very proud of, because Demi Moore...
Saved by the Bell, no? Oh, that's Demi Moore.
Demi Moore, where she plays a stripper. It's based on the Carl Hiaasen novel. She handpicked every person who was going to be in the club to see her, strip for the movie. And I just had this whole sense of pride that, I was one of the selected extras, right? Yeah.
I want you to see me. I want you to see me.
Right. But it really was an eye-opening experience. I got Ving Rhames was there, and I got to talking to him a little bit while, on the set. I'm sure the guy doesn't remember me amongst a billion people that he's met now, but it's very impressionable at the time to somebody. And I did a film called Blood and Wine, where I was an extra with Jack Nicholson and Michael Caine.
No
and
shit.
The only person in my entire career, having worked with all the people that I've ever worked with, the only person who had ever starstruck me was Michael Caine. I froze. I was trying to eat something in the scene, and I just was gaga and stupid, and I was pulled out of the scene because I just couldn't function. It was so ridiculous. But I did a bunch of extra work, and then I started asking around to find out what a future might be in film stuff, because Florida at that time was a place where a lot of productions would come in and they would shoot. It's a location. It wasn't really a production hub. It wasn't where decisions were made, but it was a great exotic location that was having its
Miami Vice was hot.
Miami Vice was hot. It was kind of its apex of, Bad Boys had come out, right? So I then was hanging out with a bunch of people. One of the people that I was hanging out with said that he was going to go to check out a trade school in Central Florida, where he wanted to learn graphic design and computer animation. And not knowing where I could find my kind of way, I just took the trip with him, and I walked into the place, and they took me on a tour, and they put in a recording of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and we were in a sound mixing room. And then they jacked up all of the sound, and it's the scene where Robert Patrick is walking through the bars.
Is that the guy, the bad guy?
Yeah, the T-1000, the liquid metal, right? So he's walking through it, and as he walks through it, he clinks the metal, gun against the bars, and it just reverberated all through the room, and I just got goosebumps. And at that moment, every single thing that I had been struggling to figure out where the direction of my life would lead just crystallized in that moment. It was just pure. It was a diamond bullet to my brain that, okay, that's it. I'm going to make films. That's what I need to do. So I had remembered a quote that Madonna said in an interview, which was, you have to do something when you feel like you will die if you do not do this. Mm-hmm. And I wrote that quote down, and I never forgot it, and it stuck in my brain. And the second I went back home to Miami, I said, okay, I'm going to sell everything. I've got to figure out a way to get into the school. I need to learn. I need to now put myself on the path. I can't spend any more time partying or hanging out or looking for what I need to, what I think I might be. I see what direction I have to head in. to become this thing.
How old were you at that time?
I was 22, 23 years old.
Okay, because not a lot of people feel that,
Yeah.
or ever get to feel that feeling in their lives. And if they're going to feel it in their 20s, early 20s is when you really get to feel it, because you don't have that responsibility usually. You don't have usually the kids and all the bills, and you have that youth, that youthfulness, that energy that you want to dive into something. So not a lot of people are lucky enough to have it with that kind of clarity. And then, so what'd you do?
Well, there was a small window to be able to go to the school, and if not, I had to wait till like another 6 months before I would be able to do it. So I just threw all caution to the wind, figured out my kind of money situation, how to get in, applied for student loans, went massively into debt, just made the decision to, just get in my car, go over there, and start, right? And I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't know what I was going to do. So the guy that I had gone up there with, he had actually decided to do this thing 1 month earlier and got in, and he was living in the parking lot because he just didn't have a place to stay. So I rigged up a 12-volt fan in my car, had an igloo in the back, got rid of everything that I owned, packed everything that I owned into that car, drove it up, and parked in the slot right next to him.
You became next door neighbors.
And we became next door neighbors.
He inspired you with his living out of his car.
Yeah.
You thought it was cool.
I said, well, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of patience or pity for people who aren't willing to do what has to be done to live the dream, to be their truth selves. If you're not willing to just do everything, I mean, you only live once, really. You really, really, that you can remember truly can only live once. So if something is that clear to you, unambiguously, you just have to do it. So I had no other way to do it. So I got a gym membership, and I would shower in the gym, and I'd go to the gym so I wouldn't lose my mind over the fact that I was homeless. And I would, sleep there at night, and I'd turn the little 12-volt fan on at night, sleep in the back, go to Taco Bell, load up on a bunch of stuff, put in a little igloo in the back of my trunk, and that's what I lived on. And I got 3 part-time jobs, and I still couldn't afford somewhere to live. But for 3 months, while I started attending the school, I wouldn't tell anyone that I was living in the parking lot, but people saw and people knew.
Now it's fashionable.
Now it's certainly fashionable.
Now I understand why there's so much homelessness and tents in LA. These are all aspiring movie producers.
Everybody has a dream. But I started in the film program, and then I very quickly, the thing that I've always done is very quickly seen the limitations of something, where the ceilings are, where like if something's going to dead end, then okay, what else do I have to do to achieve what it is that I'd like to achieve in whatever given thing? If I say, okay, that's the ceiling for, okay, well, I looked at where we were in 1990. This was 1990, I want to say 1994, and I looked at the digital cameras were just coming out. Digital technology was just starting to emerge, and I immediately saw that in order to have a competitive advantage to break into filmmaking or just the film business, just to survive, just to put food in my mouth while I work it out, I needed to have a competitive advantage that other people didn't have. Most people would continue down the path of like learning how to light and learning about lenses and learning about, I quickly saw that if I changed my major to a very nascent early program called digital media, that I would then learn something that would be very difficult for other people to learn. But if I had that leg up, then I would be able to go to Los Angeles and have something, right? So basically, I switched majors, and I would work on student films on the weekend and gain my film knowledge through working with the students of the film program and working on student films on the weekends while I was homeless, right? And so I learned about the fundamentals of digital technology, how computers work, how they think. I learned a little bit about, graphics and how computers handle graphics. Very early beginning nonlinear editors like the Video Toaster, like the Adobe Premiere 1.0, CD-ROM technology, all this stuff. But I always applied everything that I was learning and doing in the digital program to filmmaking as I was doing it. Okay. So when I was learning about 3D animation, I would be more focused on the camera movement more so than the animation. So if I had an object, I would be focused on the way the camera would glide into the space and how we would tell the story visually, right? Because I'm extremely visual spatial, and that's where my strength is, right? So in getting through this program, it was a real achievement for me because it was very difficult material to learn very early on, where it was very wonky, very technical. And then at the very end of the program, I used this camera called the DSR 200, the Sony DSR 200. It was an electronic news gathering camera that Sony came out with that they were starting to use in broadcast television, and I learned all about it for my final project, and I was shooting stuff at the school with that. So towards the end of that, in the interim, I had begun a relationship with someone and I moved in with someone, so that I became non-homeless a few months in. But I was perfectly willing to continue that way through. I mean, the program was 2 years long, so I got very lucky that I met a really beautiful woman who
I knew it. There it is.
Yeah, who actually eventually became the mother of my son.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I had a decision to make after I graduated whether or not I was going to go back down to South Florida and see if I can make it in that market. But there was really no point for me because I wanted to go where the decisions were made, right? So it became either follow my artistic instincts to go to Europe and live in Spain and work for Pedro Almodovar, or see if I could get involved with film vendors in Germany, or because somehow get involved in the European film scene, because for me it would have been more artistically satisfying to work for, because it's just more creative, it's more authentic, it's more human, it's more, I mean, there's just such an exploration of the human condition that you get out of European film that you don't get in American commercial filmmaking. So films out
there, you prefer films from Europe that are made in Europe that with a certain style?
I think many people do, but the reality is after you get to know how the business works, a lot of that work is subsidized by their countries. A lot of that work is subsidized by the Spanish government, by the French government, so they have the liberty to explore themes that we can't in the open market. Once you're working in the real film business, where you have to be competitive in an open market of content, you really have to cater to audience, right? So they don't necessarily have to cater to audience. They can go on more character exploration, the work that they do in Europe. But I really am drawn to it. I love it, and I still love it to this day. But you become more balanced as you're kind of professional in the industry with it.
Why does the government subsidize a lot of that cost?
It's just considered culturally relevant and important, and a document of what that country contributes to the global conversation, in history.
So just promoting their country.
No, they don't look at it that way. They look at it as like, for instance, France is very big on this. They have a lot of subsidy in France, and that also makes making money on movies in France very difficult because of windows for exhibition. But in France, they have a culture of supporting the auteur, the filmmaker. So if the filmmaker wants to say something, has something that they want to explore, there's funding to help do that, and much more so than here and probably most other places in the world. And the quality of the films, the quality of the performances and the stories and the narratives and the uniqueness of it that you get out of a place like France is just above and beyond what you get almost anywhere. But the reason they do that is because they have a lot of pride in their culture, and they believe that, like painting, like writing, like music, like that culture is important for the future.
So then why didn't you go there? I mean, you went to LA, right?
Well, I did have a short moment where I lost my funding while I was in school, and I decided, okay, if I'm going to lose my funding and I can't continue my studies, then I might as well just pursue this. I actually did go to Spain for I think it was about 6 months or so, seeing if I could make a go of it there, and it was starting to bear fruit a little bit. And then I got sick with a kidney stone, so I had to come back to the U.S. and kind of deal with that. And as fate, you kind of see how these things all kind of happen. I came back, I had this taken care of. My lending for my school kind of kicked back in, so I was able to go back to school and continue. So once I continued, towards the end of it, I had a friend in Miami who was aware of my plans,
right?
And we had a mutual friend that was at USC, which is the Southern California Film School.
Right.
So she had made a documentary on Russian Jews that Steven Spielberg had seen. He loved it so much that he financed her undergraduate education.
Wow.
She was somebody I used to like hang
What to do with it?
hang out and drop acid with and do ecstasy with in Miami, right? Yeah. But she had gotten her course, you know, much earlier than I did, so she was already in California doing that. So I then had a place to go, which was great because I had planned on just sleeping in my car again, finding like parking on Venice Beach, and you know, being one of these aforementioned homeless that you just mentioned about, you know, people who go there with a dream, right? I was going to be one of those people, and because if I elect to do that with my life, to make myself homeless on purpose, there is a reason that I'm doing that.
Okay, so do you have some money in the bank, but you said, you know what, if I start with harder times and kind of grind a little bit, so I'm going to work out of my car, maybe that'll make me work harder and become kind of a more solid producer?
I didn't have any money in the bank. It was what I had to do.
So it's what you had to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if I were...
So you were budgeting on gas. If you had to drive from one place to the next, you're thinking about how much that's going to cost.
Yeah, and how am I going to survive, you know? So so I managed to get out to California. I was couch surfing in her house. She gave me the rules. She goes, you need to survive year one. You have to get through your first year and not give up, because people come out here.
Twice a week.
People come out here People come out here. They try and make a go of it. They were big fishes in a small pond, or they haven't found their identity yet.
Right.
And they're coming here to find their identity, and you get out there and you do anything you have to survive. So I was like working as a studio audience member, as an extra, as I was a messenger. I was driving around treatments for cancer patients and listening to audiobooks along the way, and trying to always stay in a constant state of personal education development, even while I was working. Because, you know, if you have all this kind of time where you got to do all this, if you have to exchange your time for money, you have to find ways within that exchange of time for money to still advance yourself at the same time, if you can. Because if not, you'll be stuck in that grind. You'll exhaust yourself to the point where you don't have anything left to give back to yourself. So by being able to know that at such an early moment in digital filmmaking, and the industry starting to see that there's nonlinear editing technology and all that, I knew early on basically that it was going to become digital acquisition, digital post-production, and digital distribution. So it was going to go all the way across the spectrum of what digital technology, how that would impact the filmmaking business. So because I knew the basics of this stuff, that was what gave me what I expected it to give me, which was that competitive advantage. I know how to use the digital camera early on. I know how to edit nonlinearly, and other people don't know how to do that.
What did everybody think about you when you were doing this? I mean, you were kind of taking, I don't know, you're going into something a little bit more modern, or something too far into the future.
People were very resistant.
People laughing at you. What was that like?
No, people were very resistant, trying to knock out everything about it. And
like what? Like what?
Well, no, because there's traditionalists. No, there's traditionalists about film and the technology of film, and how digital will never be superior to film, and that it's just too easy.
Feel like it's not genuine enough, or that it conveys something different? Does it look different?
It absolutely looked different in the early days. It in no way approximated the way film looked, right? But you had to kind of accept that it had a certain amount of limitations. But Peter Broderick, who's the founder of Next Wave Films for IFC, who really did a lot for my career early on, he said that the thing you have to remember about digital technology, where it stands, or any technology, is that this is the worst it will ever be at this very moment. So every day it gets so much better that no matter what you have, and you could say that about today, you could say that about AI, you could say that about augmented reality, you can say that about any emerging technology that we're fighting against right now, and we start knocking holes in. The argument is very simple. This is the worst it will ever be. So to
get on board. Because you're going to want to understand it.
You're going to want to understand it, right? So because I understood it very early on, right? Filmmaking fundamentally is a business, and it's a drive to reduce costs everywhere and to be more efficient. Now there is a limit as to how efficient it can get, because it still needs humans to accomplish the functions of shooting for the most part. You need a guy to push the dolly. You need a person to operate the camera. You need, they may have the tools of an articulated arm, and they may have all of these tools, but it's an art that is a science, and art is like all of art is a science applied to create expression, right? That's art. And if you understand what the technology can do for you, then the technology just recesses into the background, Like the way we all use our phones today, the way we,
Right. We don't
the
even
way
think
we're able
about
to
it.
kind of be, we don't have to think about it. But it was highly, or technical and difficult back then.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only gotten, the ease of use has gotten to the point where everybody can do it. Right. It's gotten a lot easier, and that's great. And what that then does is, if everything is easier to use that way, it then challenges you about how you use it, right? The quality of what you do with it. Because it's not like, oh, look, we can do this. Oh, look, we can do that. Oh, look, we can do this. Okay, why? Ask yourself why and what it means and what you're doing with it. Because technology will always be there to support what you're doing with it. But what actually matters is what you're doing with it.
Right.
End of story. That's just it. Right.
It's kind of what I'm going through right now. I'm building the software for my company for investors to use to analyze markets, and it starts out clunky and it's got all the bugs, and it's a little crazy. But now it's getting stronger, and really what we spent most of the time building was the engine that powers the platform. So we spend all this time building a quality engine so that we can do cool stuff in the future. And now it's just a matter of time until every update that comes out is just going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's great. Yeah.
So what happened after that?
Well, then what happened was just people start to know you for what you do and how you get along with people, and they recommend you for things. So you have to just basically work for free until people are willing to pay you for what you know, right? So then I was just taking every single gig that I could get, doing every single type of thing, but coming off of this, I got recommended to someone who needed someone to shoot on a VX1000, which is a very small early digital firewire camera on a weekend, for a film about college hazing called The Decade. I filled in for a weekend, and I got along so well with the writer director and the other actors that when the DP came back to continue to shoot the movie, the director said, all of us love working with René, and we need to we need him to come back, and we need to work with him.
Why do you think that was? Above and beyond?
No, it's just the same language of film, loving film, and the language of film, the language of cinema, and just you get along with people and you vibe with them and you are creatively compatible with them. So he brought me back. We continued to shoot the movie, and I said, well, can you give me a crack at editing this thing too? Since I'm shooting, I kind of know how to. So all of my filmmaking instincts were kind of kicking in, and I took the computer that I had at school. And I had a night job. Basically, I had a day job working as a temp at different studios where I used office skills that I learned in the hotel business to be able to work Excel, answer phones, be an assistant. And then at night, I was playing the lights at a gay club in West Hollywood called Rage. So I had a plan over the 6 months. Okay, I'm going to buy a DVD-ROM burner, a DVD burner. I'm going to upgrade the hard drive. I've got to... so every month, all the money that I was making, I knew exactly what I was going to buy what month to upgrade my system, to build it out, to continue to use. So I would stopgap and be able to work and create along the way. And so I built my first editing system, and we edited the movie. And unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere, but it created a fundamental relationship with my creative partner and producing partner, James Portalese, in L.A., and we kind of looked out for each other. He was working for an Israeli producer by the name of Moshe Diamant, who's most famous for producing all of the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies in the 90s. So Time Cop, Sudden Death, Maximum Risk, everyone where he's doing the splits and fight,
Did he do Alpha Dog too?
No, he didn't do that. But basically, he was in the foreign pre-sales model of the business. They had a deal at Sony, but he was also working in the foreign pre-sales model, which is basically where you go and you sell the rights to these action movies overseas to different distributors. You take those contracts, you get them banked, you get a loan against them, and that's how you make the movie with the cash from the loan.
Wow.
And then you deliver it. So it's a deliverable. You deliver it, and then when you get the balance of what's due on the contract, you pay off your bank loan, and then you've made the movie by pre-selling the movie, and that's how you cash flow the movie.
Okay, so walk us through that one more time, because I know
this is the exciting part.
This is the exciting.
This is the exciting part for business people.
Yeah. So you go and you basically sell the movie overseas.
Yes.
You get that money. That's the money that funds making the movie.
Yes.
You make the movie, and then And then once the movie goes public, what do you call it?
You
Once it hits
deliver
the
it.
theaters,
You deliver it to distributor, and you move on.
and the
And you
distributor
make another
pays you, and you pay back international.
one.
That's where I lost you.
Simple, right? You are a distributor. You represent
Stop.
Spain.
I'm a distributor. What does that mean?
So you take a piece of content and you distribute it.
Like your movie that you're creating.
Yes.
Ahead of time or after you've already created the content?
Ah! We're going to edit that part out.
No, we don't have to edit that part out.
Jesus fucking
What?
Christ.
No, look.
Okay,
Hey, are you
no.
following? Oh, fuck. I'm just dumb. Go.
Yes, correct. So it's only the 17th time I've explained this to you.
I know.
So basically it's this. Like a TV network or a home video distributor, like when you go and you buy a video, right? That's distributed by home video distributors. So what they do is they make a bunch of copies of it. They send it to Blockbuster and whoever, and then you buy it from Walmart or wherever. Okay, so that's distribution, right? It's like when you buy an album, right? It was distributed by somebody to the stores where you would buy
Most of this,
it.
I just want to make sure the listener knows.
Okay,
Some
right.
of it I don't know.
Okay. So in the movies, it's the same thing. So whether it's home video or television, pay TV, or theatrical distribution in a territory, right? There are different buyers that represent different territories. So for Spain and France and Italy, and multiple buyers and distributors within each territory. So what you do is you go to a market like Cannes or American Film Market or sometimes Toronto, and Berlin. You put together a package and you say, okay, I'm going to make this film. You know the type of film. It's this filmmaker who's made these kinds of films before. It's this actor who makes these kinds of action. Generally you do this with genre films. Right? Yeah, you do these with genre films. Not really so much with dramas, but generally with genre. So you go, okay, if you know the Jean-Claude or like a modern day version of that is Scott Adkins, right? So you know what kind of a movie Scott Adkins makes. He makes hard action, martial arts, ninja movies. You then go and you sell this director with Scott Adkins. You know the type of movie it's going to be. You make a poster of it, and it'll show some things on the poster. And as Avi Lerner likes to say, you can make whatever movie you want. Just make sure that the movie has a little bit of what I have on the poster that I sold to the buyer. Okay, as long as you've got that, we're good. So the guys from Canon Films really, really were the ones who really industrialized this process. That was Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus. They did this in the 80s. So Missing in Action, Missing in Action, like
so good.
Rambo
Missing
2, right? Invasion USA, all the Chuck Norris, all the Death Wish movies, all of these movies were done by the Canon Group, right? American Ninja.
You had to be
right?
jacked to be in these movies.
Yeah. So they would go and they would sell, and then they would get a loan again. So you then give me a contract saying that you're going to give me 10% of that contract up front in cash. I'm going to go make the movie. I'm going to take your contract. You're a reputable company, so if I go to bank with your paper, they will believe it that you have the money to back that. You give me a deposit, 10% up front. I take that contract. I cluster that with a bunch of other contracts. I go to an entertainment bank that specializes in this kind of a thing. They discount the paper, loan to value, and they give me then, let's say 50% loan to value plus the 10% you gave me, or if it's 60% plus another 10%, I have 70% of the budget. Okay, then I know that I have to make the movie that I sold to these guys for 65 cents on, against that 70 cents of the paper to have margin just in case, I have to do reshoots or pickups or whatever. It's a little bit complicated because you have completion bond guarantors. You have a whole bunch of mechanisms around this thing, but that's the basic premise. You then take that money. No matter what you do, there's no more money. You've committed to making a product and delivering a product for a certain amount of money. So you make sure that you know how to make that movie for that amount of money and deliver the quality that they expect when you deliver it. So you make it, you deliver it, you collect everything back. You bake in interest because there's now these days I think 3.5 or 4%. Yearly cost of money that you have to float for approximately 12 to 18 months, so 2 years basically of carry costs for money while you make the film, deliver it, and go through a process of collections to be able to pay off those loans, right? So then once you know how to do this with one, you know how to do it with many, and then you're like cycling through and making a lot of these things. And this guy, Moshe, had a number of these companies, and once you kind of get into the churn of it, you can make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these movies a year. And if you figure out how to kind of structure yourself correctly, you're making money, and you're making money while you're making the movies. And by making the movies, you are making money. right? And you're building a reputation with the international buyers for the type of movies that you make and what they can expect from you. And, so then if you need to kind of take a leap of faith on something, they're going to do it on your name, right? So so that's the quick version of that.
Where do the biggest monkey wrenches get thrown in? At what part of the process? There's a lot of steps to that process, and some point someone screws up, someone can't pay back a loan, someone doesn't like the quality of the film that you made.
Well, that's why you need to make sure that all the technical specifications. Basically, you have to make sure that you have delivered the film to all technical standards expected, so they don't use an objective reason
right
to get away with something subjective that they're trying to pull off.
That's why entertainment lawyers make so much money.
If you're fickle and you decide, I don't want to pay for this movie, well, no, you did the contract and I've delivered to all these specifications, you have to pay. So, but if they it's a very small business, so people will not, they're not going to
tightly knit business, so they trust each other. They won't screw up their names.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't want to give somebody a reason to have an out. So you take all the reasons away for them to have any kind of out, even if it's just like that they're not happy with it. But if they're not happy with it and you deliver shit, you're going to go back to them and try and get money from them again to deliver shit again.
Right.
So it doesn't work, right? So because that is like that, and so you're always trying to drive costs down. You're always trying to find different places to make movies. Like the Canon guys were great at it. They went to they shot in South Africa. They shot in Croatia. They'd shoot wherever they could shoot a movie very cheaply and perform spectacle, blow things up, and get really high grade action, but for the lowest cost possible. They do it these days
so
now.
Wherever there was a disaster, any place that needs money, right? New Orleans, right? Detroit.
No, I mean
places that need funding, places.
Yeah, but it's really a lot cheaper to shoot in Eastern Europe. So you do it in now you do it in Romania, you do it in Bulgaria. Right. There's also incentives set up in certain countries where you can do that. Greece has an incentive now. So you're always just looking for me, it's always a question of finding the place that is the most cost effective, but also creatively appropriate. That doesn't always mean that it is the place at the rock bottom price of the list. It might be one or two notches up in terms of cost, but it has the best of all worlds to make that movie look the best that it can be, so that it doesn't look like you were so frugal, so cheap that you made something cheap and it looks it, right? There's a very fine line with all of that. So because I had this knowledge of digital technology and understanding where it could go, producers are peripatetic and very entrepreneurial, and they go, oh, okay, you can do that. You can do that cheap. Let's find a shortcut with that. Well, let me bring you into this. So I was brought into the business to see where we could streamline and be more cost effective, where we can use technology to not have to spend as much money as we would normally have to because if the resources are finite for the product that we have to deliver, we have to find every other place. If you can't reduce the amount of humans, then you have to go, okay, well, how do we get more out of what humans we have? So we use technology and tools to support that. So because I was able to do that, I could move very quickly. I could do schedules and budgets. I can I can break down a script. I can work with filmmakers. I can speak their language, and I can as a filmmaker, I could appeal to them to show the benefits of what using the technology would do for their creative expression. So I was always in this intersection of technology and creativity, and being able to merge the two so that we can get more for what you want to leave behind. Because nobody's going to remember that you shot a budget. Nobody's going to remember that what you did, what you accomplished. What they're going to remember is the effect of what you did. So the story that you're telling, if it connects to people in a very fundamental way, that's the thing that they're going to remember. They're not going to remember, oh, you're under budget, you're on time, you're this, that. What matters is how good you made it. But the reality of business is that there's only so much that you can make it good with. So you have to. It's a real kind of art, and to a psychological and logistical and human process to figure out the intersection of all of these things, so that everybody feels like they're getting what they want out of it. Because at the end of the day, you have to be responsible to the money, but you also really have to be responsible to what everybody is trying to get out of it.
What was the most rewarding film that you ever worked on?
It's challenging to say, because some of the films that I've done have been have been, for lack of a better way to put them, programming. But the experience of making them was great.
What do you mean by that, programming?
Well, programming is, I mean, it's a term that's used quite a bit in that it's most of what you're watching is programming. If it's kind of a by the numbers thriller kind of thing, the experience of making and working with the craftspeople of the art is separate from what the movie ultimately is. You can have an incredible experience working with these great craftsmen and learn a lot from them, but the movie itself is actually not that great. It's just kind of another tile on Netflix where you just kind of click it and it's just there. It's something you can consume and it doesn't really deeply move you, but it's something you can watch and is entertaining. Or if it's very predictable and it's something you've seen a million times before, that's programming.
Manufactured,
right.
Just kind of follow all the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I was involved in for many different reasons in a bunch of different films, but one of them that was very turned out to be very important in the Me Too movement was The Tale, which was a story about abuse. And occasionally you get these films that really are meaningful, that really touch people, that are really important to people. And I'd say, from a nostalgia point of view, personally, I made it so in the beginning of my career, when I started doing all this with everybody and I wanted to kind of get my own movie out, I started putting together a deal and the whole thing kind of fell apart. So my partner and I got very, very frustrated and decided that we would just write a script where we would just vomit out every single thing that we were feeling. And I would use every little trick that I have with filmmaking and editing and all that. And we would just be completely honest and make a polemic on where we were in 1999 with this pre-millennium tension where was the world going when the year 2000 clicks and all of that. Yeah. Y2K. Yeah. None of us really knew what the future. There was this anxiety in the world. And we were really disenfranchised about where we were in our lives. And we saw Fight Club and we were like, God, this is amazing. It's genius. And I was like, if there's a way to just spit out what you're feeling and to let it out therapeutically, let's just do that. And I don't give a fuck who sees it. I don't care where it goes. I just want to do that. So we started emailing each other what we do in a typical day. And we built a script out of a typical monotonous day about people who communicate through little boxes, these telephones and these devices, and eating out of a box and working in offices and cubicles. So we inadvertently kind of created that little bastard stepchild of Office Space and Fight Club kind of merged to create this little indie movie, which we only made with cool. We basically challenged ourselves to only use the money that we had in our pockets, and what we did have was $285. So we made a movie for $285, and we shot it on weekends. And
was it profitable?
Very.
You brought in more than $285.
We brought in more than $285. So what happened with that film is because there was a certain spirit of everything pre-digital technology was all about the barriers of entry to the business. To if you want to be a filmmaker, you have to go to UC, you have to kind of do the apprenticeship route, you have to bust your ass, you have to raise all this money and all of that. We were saying you could just grab a camera and go fucking shoot and make a movie and stop your bitching, stop complaining, make a fucking movie. I don't give a fuck. I have no pity for you because I lived in my fucking car to do this.
Oh, you're one of those.
You are
an angry old man.
I have no pity for what you feel that you're entitled to, because if you want something, you just go out and do it. So we made a movie and we sent it to every single person that we knew. I went to the dollar store. So quality doesn't matter. Here's an example of why quality doesn't matter. I went to the dollar store and I bought out every VHS videotape that they had, and I hand dubbed copies, which means every generation down it looks worse, right? And I made hand dubs. Then I used a kind of a shipping number from Sony because I was working side.
I feel like that might give it more character, though.
A very little bit more texture,
film.
Right? Grainy, super. Yeah. Right? So we sent it to every single person that we'd ever encountered in the business and in our lives, and then I had, in the process of shooting the movie, been discovered shooting the movie on Sony property. So I got fired at Sony because I was shooting there. And when I went to pick up my final paycheck after we'd sent the movie out to everybody.
Wait, what happened? Back up. You got fired by Sony for what?
Because
you made the movie?
Because I got caught on the weekend shooting a
when
piece of my movie.
When you weren't supposed to be there. And then you're in there with your camera.
Yeah. And a cast and catering from the dollar store and peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, you had a whole setup.
Yeah. But it happens,
kind of
right?
Hilarious.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is that I went to pick up my final paycheck, and I was sitting in the lobby of Sony Pictures Plaza, and I was looking up into the sky, and I realized that I was an ant, you know, in the vastness of the universe, with my final paycheck in my hand. And my phone rang, and it was James saying, "Hey, are you sitting down?" I was, "Yeah, sure. I'll just, you know, I've got nothing to do. I have no job, and I don't know where life's gonna go now." I sit down, and he goes, "Next Wave Films, which is the finishing fund and the kind of the initiative for digital filmmaking at the Independent Film Channel, IFC, loves your film, loves our film. And they also provided finishing funds for Christopher Nolan for his first film Following, for Joe Carnahan, who did the A-Team and, you know, Narc, and right, for his first movie, Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane. So in this group of, you know, meticulously selected people, they wanted to our film, you know. So they bought the film, and 1 year to the day that we were inspired to write the film, I think it was October 18th, 1999, we were inspired to do it. We filmed it, put it together, and then IFC told us they wanted to premiere the movie online and on air at the same time. So they took the movie and they chopped it into 6 chunks, and it premiered streaming on the IFC website at the same time it was premiering on the IFC channel on a program they called DV Theater. And it premiered October 18th, the year 2000. So 1 year to the day that we were inspired to make the movie, it premiered on IFC.
What kind of audience is there on back then? I mean, year 2000, it was on
good.
A very specific streaming thing.
Indie, very indie. No, it was very indie because a lot of
people who are very much into indie films.
Yeah, IFC had a lot of credibility.
Watching that channel.
Yeah,
right?
Are watching that channel. The Sundance crowd, that, you know, right.
Right.
So off of that,
So it's industry people basically that were watching your show.
And we got great write-ups. We did great interviews. We were all over the kind of you know, the indie film world town. And then once we got known to be like the guys who could make a movie so cheaply with digital technology, then everybody was calling us saying, "Hey, how can you, you know?" So then I ended up working with IFC on their first self-financed digital feature starring Don Cheadle, Zooey Deschanel, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt called Manic, where I oversaw their post-production process.
I don't know who they
and that movie premiered at Sundance the next year. And then as things kind of evolved, I ended up becoming you know, producer on a lot of you know, I just grew from that, and I always was living my life in a constant state of preparation. So no matter what I was doing, I was always reading books, learning things, and ingesting, so that when an opportunity arose, I knew the line of thinking that I needed to have in order to adapt to the opportunity, so then I could create something new for myself. And I directed a number of features, and then I suppose, and I'll be just very honest about it, I felt a certain amount of rejection, and I think you then go into this kind of creative incubation space with yourself, where you say, okay, I need to grow as a person, as a human. I need to have something to say before I come back to this, because when I want to do this, because I did a couple of projects where I was a journeyman. So I took over projects for other people. I did some stuff, and then I ended up going, look, I don't feel like this is the kind of path I want to take, where I just want to do this for hire. If there's something that I feel passionate about, then I want to do that as a directing thing. If not, I want to use my filmmaking skills, my producerial skills, to, if someone else is better as a filmmaker for a particular story, I want to be able to facilitate that or make a living doing that, and build currency in the business doing that. Because then as it builds, you're, you know, building a reputation, people know you, people call you, you know how to solve a problem, you know how to see how these things are missing a certain element, you can bring a certain element to it, and you can bring it over the line. I utilize every skill of being a guerrilla filmmaker in indie filmmaking, and now the industry has kind of come to me ultimately. Like all the stuff that I was trying to convince people to do, like with small cameras and like rigs and all that, it's completely adopted by the industry now. Right. So now it's just baseline. But they're like, oh yeah, bring in the digital guy. Yeah, hey, digital guy. You know, like I was that guy until they all started going. Do you
get any credit now for being in the early?
No, there were a lot of me's.
You never did.
There were a lot of me's, right, at the same. I just got, but it helped me create a base of reputation and work that then allowed me to then build into what used to be a very, very hard, and still is, business to get into. And the thing I'm particularly adept at is the filmmaking process itself, because there are a bunch of different types of producers. There are some that are strictly creative, that are just really good at development. There are some that are very good at just financing and putting deals together, and they're more like money deal flow type people. Everyone has something in them that draws them to this business, that even if they don't call themselves creative, they are creative, or they want to be creative, and they want to find a method of expression. Because if it's just about making money, you can make a lot of more money in other businesses. It's really about, what is it about this business that draws you to it? Because there's something, it calls you, you call it, it's this weird flow exchange. If it's genetically you, that you're just in it, you just are able to live it and do it and be it.
Well, what kind of a kid were you with your upbringing when you grew up, with authority and structure and things like that?
I'm the son of a single mother, so I'm very empathetic and expressive, because I grew up with a mother who'd been traumatized through a very toxic relationship with my father, whom she's since forgiven, and I've forgiven. And I love him, and I grew up in an environment of polarity, because the Cuban American community in South Florida is very very rigid in their view of the world and politics and human just relationships between people, and that transposed itself a bit in how my mother hated my father, and I lived with my mother, and she was struggling every single day to provide for me, to take care of me, to make sure that I was able to live my dreams. And my father was always busy and wasn't able to come get me or see me, and would forget. And it's not that he would forget. I came to understand after becoming a father myself, and then building in a business, that he was building a business. He was trying to survive. He was trying to keep employees paid. He was trying to keep money coming in.
He knew one day you'd understand.
He hoped one day I would understand.
He hoped one day you'd understand. Do you understand?
I understand now, but I also understand to the point where I also look at it and say, I call bullshit. Because if you're aware of it, you can do something about it. In terms of making sure that you're there for what's important with your kid. I am a horrible father to this day. So I love my son with all that I am, and I'm trying to do better as much as I can. But I lost a lot of years with him. I did, because I was so self-involved in trying to build out and become, that I, made all the assumptions of my son's mom, my beautiful, ex-wife, who's family. We're family now, and she is an amazing mother to him, and I'm very lucky that she's his mother. But at the same time, I take for granted the fact that she's also become his father and has done everything for him. What I try and do is try and give my son as much love as I possibly can, because my father didn't know how to tell me that he loved me until his mid-30s, when his father died. Then he figured out how to say it to me, and I needed that so badly. And my mom gave that love to me so profoundly, that from the start, I didn't know how to show my love for my son in any other way other than to constantly tell him that I love him. If there's one thing he knows that I deeply, deeply love him. So because I was in this bad thing where my mom would hate on my dad and my dad would hate on my mom, and I was in the middle, that kind of put me in this spot of never becoming an extremist myself. That put me in the spot of going, okay, that's emotion, that's anger, that's fear. It's as much as I need them to be my parents, I have to never agree with an extreme opinion in either way. What I actually have to look at is what is the most progressive way forward through any given thing. And if you look at my tattoos, everything is, chevrons that move forward, right? Everything is an implication of forward movement. Everything on my body, and it just kind of naturally manifested that way. But that is actually how I am. I don't. If somebody's taking an extreme kind of position on something, I'm usually just trying to figure, okay, how do we get from today to tomorrow?
That's interesting. My kid's mom, you know, when we got divorced, she got a tattoo on her arm. It's like her only tattoo, and it says "forward."
Yeah.
Which at first I was just completely offended by, you know, because first of all, your tattoos are a conversation piece, especially if you're not tatted all over like you are. You have one tattoo.
But you should ask her what that means, though.
I understand. No, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Jessica, about it, and I was just, I don't know, I felt almost enraged when I found out that she had this tattoo forward. You know, it's kind of like, fuck you, I'm not with you anymore. You're my past. I'm moving forward, and it was, and it's a tattoo, so it starts conversations.
Yeah.
And at that point, the conversation about me, I didn't feel like it was gonna be flattering.
Right.
So, I mean, not that I did anything bad, but just, I mean, we got a divorce. So, right after that. And then you're kind of also justifying, you know, with conversation. It almost opens up a conversation. Ask me what happened. Ask me to tell you my side of it. You know, that's the jaded, stupid way that I thought about it. When I told this to Jessica, she's like, no. She's like, that's a
human thing.
That's a big, almost like a compliment to you. You know, it's like, because it's difficult it's easy to get caught in the past and think about all these past things, and it's painful to think about the good things being left behind. So you kind of have to, all those things, you kind of have to close that door and move forward. And I never realized that about it, but it looks like you're.
The more you look at me, the more you
now
actually see the theme.
Oh, it's actually a real issue here.
When people ask me about, you know, my tattoos, I say it's the story of my life and my body, and it's true. Each one of these things has come onto my body at a very particular part of my life, in a moment of my life. You know, this one was recently on my last birthday, was this one that I did here. Crossing over the hand was a big commitment, because I knew that after I crossed over my hand, I couldn't hide it. I had to commit to my own agency and independence. Well, I mean, you've been kind of creeping around Austin a little bit. I moved here because I just love the vibrational energy of this place, as opposed to, you know, all the places that I've been for work and lived at. There's just there's a thing to this place, but I know that you're starting to catch on to the comedy scene here. You know, tell me a little bit about what you think about that.
Oh, so yeah, you know, a lot of people they work really hard to break into a scene, or if they go to the festivals and all of that, you know, and I don't really do that. It's not really my approach. I kind of blend into it, you know, so I'm just popping up here, doing a little show here, watching, getting to know people. That's kind of how I do it. I don't really try too hard. I don't like doing that.
Do you feel that's because
it feels icky?
Do you feel that?
But I'm just not good at it, actually. Some people are naturally just good at it.
You're a little bit more insecure and like developing?
No, it's not that. It's just I'm kind of more
stay
quiet. I play the wall.
Hide in plain sight still?
I like to read the room, you know, for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And if people like my comedy, then I'll stand out. I already stand out. People already see me. It's cool here.
Oh, you stand out.
Oh, I stand out.
I see.
Leave the comedy to the comedian. But, you know, and there's a wheelchair guy here who's a comedian. I say wheelchair guy. Like I get to say it.
Yeah. Well, technically, he lives here, so he's the wheelchair.
He's the wheelchair. I'm a wheelchair comedian.
You're an interloper.
Yeah, but what's funny is like he's a little bit shaped like me, you know, like his head and like he's a white dude and kind of like features. Like it'd be easy for people. I've had a bunch of comedians come up to me, like touch me like sexually, like as a joke.
Thinking that you were him.
Yeah, like as a joke, and I'm like, sir, what? But so that's pretty funny. It's pretty interesting. It's weird because two wheelchair people being in the same room, it's almost like awkwardness, you know. So I came here the other night. I saw him.
Is one going to kill the other one?
I was like,
because they're
I'm
the
out.
center of attention.
Yeah. Or people think his jokes are my jokes, or my jokes are his jokes. Right. It's like, I didn't like what you said about the abortion the other day. But yeah, we you know, so Austin is amazing for comedy. It's just so many different venues that are close together. I know a bunch of people that came here from Florida and now they live out here. Now they're killing it out here. They're putting on shows all the time or hosting. I saw Matt Ross, you know, saw him hosting over at Mothership on some reel recently when Hannibal showed up, Hannibal Buress. I would live here if it weren't for my kids. Maybe my son and I will move out here, and my daughter doesn't want to be in the heat, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So she chooses to stay in the heat of
I
Florida.
think she's going to I think she's going to probably move north somewhere.
Yeah.
North Carolina or something like that. But I mean, if everybody separates, I mean, that would suck. I would hate that. But that's kind of like unfortunately, like what my bloodline does. And their mom, too. Like, their bloodline is just everybody kind of scatters and doesn't really talk too much to each other, which is like a fucking nightmare. That's horrible.
Sounds very American.
It's American. Yeah, it is.
I mean,
it's horrible.
This is an American. It's
It's
as American as
horrible.
apple pie.
You want to what I would
sure.
like to do is build a big ass family. We're all in the same town. Pretty much, this is the home base, and people can go off and come back and whatever. But some people I don't know have families like that, and it's like that's what I want. And I don't think that's gonna happen here. You keep trying. You keep planting more seeds.
In general, or here?
Well, we talk about that sometimes. You never know.
Right.
Yeah, maybe I'll come out here and then start multiplying or something. But
it's centralized.
yeah, well, it's very very easy.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't taken an Uber since I've been here.
Yeah,
I just push myself around.
it's true. Tonight we're gonna go see Bobcat.
And so last night we saw Attell. What did you think about that? I felt kind of old last night.
I'm an old man.
First of
all,
all,
started falling asleep.
It's a college. I was falling asleep. Nothing against Attell because he was hitting. Like he was hitting constantly. He was great. And it's exactly what you went there to see. He has his brand.
Yeah.
And he did it. So that was great. I was falling asleep before him, and not even anything about those other comedians. I was just like, I'm fucking old, and I'm an hour. I'm an hour ahead.
The best part of tonight is that the show starts at 8. That to me is the best part of it.
How old are we that
that
you're thinking that?
It's gonna be
and
great.
You know what? I was ashamed of myself last night because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, okay, so all right, I'll be home by 12 if the show ends on time.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's like nothing but college kids and drunk college kids in the street, like packed.
I'm thinking about the time of
not too
from
long
the
ago.
hotel,
I would have dove right
grabbed
into
my
that.
shit, how to get to the parking structure, and then the drive home, and then I had to feed my dog. So I'm like, okay, I gotta get home.
But this is
feed the dog. And
but
then
this is a college town, and it's spring break, which I thought people went home for spring break, but whatever. It's a little bit more packed, and I think I just didn't notice how young it was the last few times I was here.
Yeah.
But they came out last night, man. So we got done seeing a comedian of our day.
Yeah.
Right? Well, he looks older. He's like a comedian of our day. We're kind of falling asleep. We come out and there's all this, like, what to me are like children.
Speak about yourself while I'm
Yeah. But yeah, and I was just ashamed of myself. I'm like, I'm going home. Like, this used to be like a paradise for me.
This would be like the start. Like if it were me in Miami,
Oh yeah,
like
that'd be a
peak
pre-gaming.
Miami midnight is when you start.
Pre-gaming would be
like
the show.
You've like just put on your Spritz YSL and you're like getting into the car at midnight, right? Like you start, you're gonna land somewhere like 12:45, 1. That's now it's please, I want to be out.
You know what they say, it's not the year on the car, it's the miles.
Yeah. It's so true.
That's right. That's good.
It's so true.
It's not the year on the car, it's the miles.
This is very true. But I'm doing what I can as I get older to keep the game tight.
So we're gonna see Bobcat Goldthwait. Speaking of old school comedians, right? He was in Blow. Wasn't he? He was in Blow, right?
Was he?
Yes. It burns at 90% purity.
Yes.
80, 90.
Yes.
Fuck me running. 95. He's like, can I have a?
Is that okay?
He's the guy who said I can't feel my face.
Yeah.
And then they made a song about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? You think it's gonna be better,
I'm excited.
than Dave Attell? I feel like it's kind of off the beaten path. Like I've never heard anybody say I'm going to see Bobcat Goldthwait. So I'm excited. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the Rowe Show.
Thanks for inviting me.
The Rowe Show. Now you know.
Appreciate it.
We went toe to toe.
Maybe we'll do this again sometime with guests.
Thank you. And Rene Besson, everybody. Thanks for watching The Rowe Show. If you like what you saw today, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to leave a comment. Maybe leave a question. Maybe we might answer it. Share this with your friends. And most importantly, make sure that you're subscribed. Also, you can get more stuff like this at TrueMarketInsiders.io. I'll see you on the next show.